What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the opening pair, episode number 6 of Sports Zone. And this time, we're going to break down the first 5 nights of this year's Premier League darts. But I can't do it alone, so I've brought in an old friend of mine. Kyle's unavailable this week, but we are more than happy to have a great friend, an old adversary back in our Irish college days, the great, the one, the only, Mr. Tommy O'Connell. Tommy, welcome to the opening pair. Thanks very much for coming on.
Keith, thanks for asking me on. Absolutely delighted to be on. Fair play to you guys, doing a fantastic job. So more than happy to come on and make sure you're doing everything right and put you in your place on a few things.
Oh, it'd just be like old times, I'd say, fairly quickly. But for the audience,
we weren't really adversaries, you see, in college. We was having Keith go back because we used to play darts in college, and Keith was in Dublin and I was in Carlow. But Keith did something that I didn't really do, which was actually getting to the later stages of tournaments. So we didn't really meet that much. I used to crash and burn early.
No, but you were a great man to call and mark games. That was just as important, to be fair, Tommy. Everyone finds their place in life, which is the important thing.
It stands to me now, 15 years later, that I'm able to mark a game.
Subtraction is a lot harder than people make it out to be. But we're not here to talk about Irish college darts or the good old days. I'm sure we'll tip in a few comments every now and again. We are here to talk about the first 5 nights of Premier League darts. So I think before we get into it, I would be interested to know your kind of top 9 thoughts on how they went about picking the 10 guys for this year. Obviously, the night of the World Final, they only came up with 9 names and said that they would come back at a later date with the 10th, which ended up wrapping itself into the winner of the Masters between Johnny Clayton and Mervyn King. So I'm just from a kind of a first point of view, did you think that this was the right approach? Do you think that there was someone that they could have filled in at the time? Or what were your views on the 10 guys who eventually got in?
My overall view on the 10 guys that got in, I was happy with, because I think James Wade has got shafted a lot over the years, and he expressed in January as well he was disappointed that he didn't get in. The 10 guys that are in, I think, are correct. I think there are a few guys there that might feel a little hard done by. I think Gary Anderson will find himself very lucky to be in there. Gary Anderson is obviously a legend within the Premier League, but that shouldn't really stand to too much at the moment. I think they were under a lot of pressure as well, considering the way the last year went, to get the right guys in, considering they probably had a fair idea of the format that was coming along. But the way they finally went about it, I suppose, was okay. Going forward into the future, is picking the winner of the Masters the right way, but going about the Premier League as a final spot, I'm not entirely sure. They did expand the field out to 24 people this year from 16 originally. If it was originally 16, I would say no, because if you think about the Masters, the 16 top players in the world, there's a few of them already going to be in it. So that narrows it down even further, and then you're basically saying, okay, these guys are ranked. There's 10 guys here that are already ranked fairly high. It's going to be one of them. I think that's a little bit harsh on other players that might have done well throughout the year. So overall, the year that's in it, it's probably okay. It's a good way of going about it at the moment.
Yeah, I think for me, what I kind of looked at when I heard that they were pausing and waiting, obviously the obvious thing to say is that they didn't want Wade in, because to be fair to Wade, he 2 finals, the European Championships, the Grand Slam at Arts final, 9 darter in the Worlds. So you're kind of thinking he's surely the last man in, if he's not already kind of 8 or 9 in the pecking order. So that was the one that was kind of like, well, why isn't Wade there? And then even more so, maybe you can make the argument for Dave Chisnall after the annihilation job that he did on MVG in the quarterfinals. You know, any other year, that gets you into the Premier League. So I thought it was an interesting way. I didn't mind that they chose the Masters winner as the 10th spot, but I think I would have preferred if they had said that before the tournament, as opposed to waiting and seeing how it played out. And then at the last minute, after the semi-finals, when they knew it was kind of Johnny and Merv, that they said, oh, it'll be the winner of this. It felt like kind of, we still don't know maybe who should be in it, but this is an opportunity for us to fill this hole now, was kind of where I came from.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, just as you said there about Wade's performances last year with the 2 finals and the 9 darter, I think if James Wade is called Simon Whitlock and he does that, he gets in. it's all to do with the history as well of James Wade, which is it's dreadful. It's absolutely awful the way he's been treated. Consistent performance inside the top 10. Even when he dips his form, he manages to maybe pick it up on the floor a little bit, and then he bring it into tournaments later in the year. And he should have been an ever present in the Premier League every single year. It got me angry now years ago. I remember there was a Facebook page set up somewhere called James Wade should be in the Premier League of darts, and it was just something that didn't make any sense, and it seemed very, very unfair. And it was odd as well that it was done so aggressively towards a player that you kind of wouldn't want to annoy too much either. You want to keep him on side. But listen, I mean, James Wade in a tournament, you're going to back him to get to the later stages. James Wade in the Premier League, you can't guarantee that he's going to turn up every week, and because of it in his own head, does he want to be there? It's not a knockout tournament. He's just probably doing it to kind of tune his game. It's a good feather in your cap to be asked to be in the Premier League, but whether you perform in it or not, and maybe some of his performances in that first stage kind of could echo that as well. Just as you said with the Masters there, and you were talking about Merv King losing the final, would have been not only delighted. Now, I love Johnny Clayton. I would have been delighted to see Merv King win it, mainly because Mervyn King is a legend. I really like him.
The history of King, yeah.
The history of King as well, but to see him back in the Premier League, he was one of the original guys in the Premier League and actually made it to a final where I think Phil Taylor beat him. And Mervyn King's averages now, Mervyn King's performances now, destroys Mervyn King of 15 years ago.
Completely. Completely.
The 17th year of it. I think it was either the first or second final that he was in, and he was in the original Premier League. So to see him to come back while so many of those names have gone. You had Terry Jenkins, was it Cole Stumpy? Was Cole Stumpy? Well, I think was pretty sure was in one as well. Or no, sorry, it was Roland Cholton.
Yeah, so you're looking at and the longevity of King is a fantastic talking point to get into. Maybe not for this show, but I think definitely down the line. Like the likes of Baxter, Painter, Hamilton, he's come back. He's not the same. All these guys are from that era, and so is King. And King's the one that's still around. He's probably taken over kind of Steve Beaton as that kind of older head that's always hanging around tournaments still. But it's interesting that we talk about Wade, because on the eve of the competition kicking off, he gets in, probably not the way that he wanted to, but unfortunately Gerwyn Price fails his COVID test within the Milton Keynes bubble, and Wade is there as the first reserve. And I'm just wondering, while we're kind of wrapping up on James Wade, if Wade hadn't won the UK Open, is he first reserve?
Yes. I genuinely think so. But saying that, it's easy to say that, but that's if there was no UK Open. Who's going to win the UK Open if it's a player that's not already in the Premier League? I mean, if it's Luke Humphreys go in and James Wade left out again. I think James Wade was softened up and told that he would have been first reserve. Obviously after the UK Open, but before they probably gave a list of their 9 and saying, okay, you're in this little group here. So maybe if you perform over the next month, you could get, if something happens, which happened before. Gary Anderson pulled out a few years ago. So these things do actually happen. So I think Wade had a fair idea that he was. I definitely think he was kind of primed for it before the night before. Even if it was a couple of days or something, maybe they said I don't know. I know Gerwyn Price found out the night before, but I think Wade was told that he was next up as soon as Wade kind of found out there could be a few COVID checks. Maybe he was ready for it, but anyway, it's a different thing.
So we end up with our 10 players anyway. So Wade replaces Price, and it's unfortunate for Price. He's the newly crowned world champion. The tournament is for the worse for him, because I think not only is he, in my opinion, the informed darts player, he's one of the kind of the 4 or 5 who I think have the most solid throws in world darts at the moment. Looking at the kind of the 10 competitors, if we can get it up on screen, please. There's a lot of these guys who I think at the moment are really, really struggling with their techniques. I think, obviously, unfortunately, Glenn is the obvious one to say, but I think heading into the tournament, I think there was issues with Aspinall's throw. Peter Wright, you never know what you're going to get from. Rob Cross, And even I would go so far as saying MVG still hasn't even himself out. So there was definitely a kind of a level playing field as we kind of got into night one. But I don't know if you've any thoughts on that, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, the first of all, Price being out is off. No matter what you think of him, he's box office at the moment, and he is world champion, and he would probably be up there with Johnny at this stage. You know, he's because he's that consistent. The trolls at the moment, as you said, the obvious one is Glenn Durant, which is it's painful and it's sad to watch. He got COVID last year, and he said he hasn't really come back. He struggled since. He said that absolutely ravaged his body, and he didn't kind of feel the same. He sees darts landing. It's almost like watching somebody with dartitis. It's that uncomfortable.
Yeah, it really
is uncomfortable to watch. You can see by the other players as well that they feel for him. You could see it in a good few people. You can nearly see Aspinall as well, kind of nearly going after he gets a big score. Trying to key him up a little bit. You see the other players as well. Rob Cross. It's happened to so many players, and I could be completely off the mark. But again, it seemed Cross decided to slim down a little bit. Things started to go a little bit off for him. His throw is a little bit off. The same with Peter Wright. Peter Wright's throw, I think, is still smooth and consistent if he stops messing around with his darts. I think Peter Wright's looking really good at the moment. Mike Van Gerwen is releasing the dart late, which is so unlike him and so odd, and I'd say it's going to be frustrating for him as well. Like Wayne Mardle and all that, constantly criticising all the guys' throws as well, and telling them what they're doing wrong. Van Gerwen is, he's, in my eyes, he's still world number one. He's still the one to beat. He's still the best player in the world. So he knows he'll know how to fix his game. But just looking down, I mean, it's obviously Glenn Durant is the obvious one at the moment, but here's hoping he can do something. Is the Premier League stage the right place? I think it actually might be. As horrendous as it is to see him up there doing that, I actually think if he was at home or maybe on the floor, he'd be getting frustrated and he'd be doing his own thing. But he's up there now, and he's in front of the cameras, and he's playing against some of the world's best players, and he's still winning legs. He's still getting 3 legs here, 3 legs there. So
I suppose that when you're former, well, I was going to say former, he's the current Premier League champion, so we don't have a new one yet. I can only imagine the level of frustration that's going through him at the moment. And unfortunately, it has been reflected in his results. He is at the bottom, kind of holding up everybody. But I think the out of the first 5 nights, my top contender is Dimitri Van den Berg. I think he's settled into this kind of elite phase grouping of players with ease. I think the first night against MVG, I felt he should have taken MVG that night, and that would have really kind of kick-started him. So in terms of the debutants, Clayton's obviously taken it like a duck to water. Dimitri's been really, really good, and Jose de Souza, like, you don't know what you're going to get from the guy, but he is box office in his own way.
I love it because Jose is us. He's one of us. That's what he is. You don't know what he's going to do. He won a tournament last year, the European Grand Prix, and he won it with 88. And he checked out, was it treble 8, double 14, double 18?
Just something ridiculous.
To win the tournament. To win the tournament. I mean, he miscounts. He miscounts the other day, and then in the next 9 he hits a 9-darter. Who does that? Jose is the kind of guy that is on the other darts team when you go to the pub on a Friday night, and these lads are coming from a different pub, and Jose's on that team. Big lump of a lad, real nice and jolly, counting all over the place. He just happens to be world class.
He is the everyday man's dart thrower to kind of like that could
be. And he's putting it up to lads, and he had a really good year, and he's there for a reason. He's taken some huge scalps. He's won a couple of tournaments. He won he's won on the floor. He won in Dublin a couple of years ago. Like, he's won in Barnsley. He's won a few places over the past couple of years. So he's there on merit. Again, as you said, Dimitri is as well. I mean, his performance at the match play last year, I was a little bit kind of, I was looking at it saying, I wonder, is that him? Has he peaked? He's young, and would he look at that and say, this is me now, and kind of, but he's kicked on. Controversially, I'm not fully convinced, as you are, about Van den Berg. Okay. Don't think he'll make the playoffs.
We can get to that. But From a
Go
top
ahead.
line point of view, why do you not think that they make it?
Sorry?
From a top line point of view, like if you had to say one reason why won't he make it?
I'm not going to say he won't make it. I think he probably will be up there in the top 10 for years to come. At the moment, on current form, I think players are letting him off a little bit. I'm being extremely harsh now, but I kind of I see him getting rattled a little bit. He's taken out some shots after players missed their shots, which is huge, which is something that the top players all do. They punish, but he's getting off because the other guys are missing shots. I'm being extremely harsh here. I've been watching him, and I'm waiting for him to drop back a little bit. I mean, if you look at the table, look how close that table is.
It's madness.
Like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's great, obviously, for the next stage, which means all the games are going to be fantastic. But I'm being harsh on Dimitri. He might prove me wrong, but again, that's my opinion on him.
And that's fair. I think if we're talking about Dimitri, and I think we're best to kind of bring Johnny Clayton into the conversation as well, because he has taken to this to like a duck to water. Obviously, the haters will say it's because it's behind closed doors, and let's see him with 10,000 people roaring him on or roaring against him. But we live in a new world of sport, and sport is behind closed doors, and these guys are still playing for the same paycheck that they would if there was a massive crowd there. And for Clayton to get up and do what he's done so far, I think has been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, Johnny Clayton he's the real deal. 100%. He's going to be I'm trying to, what is he, 17th in the world at the moment?
I think he's in and around kind of the top 16 if he's not in it already.
I don't even think he's got into that top 16 yet, which is unbelievable considering he's in the Premier League. But he will be, and he will be top 10. Johnny Clayton is just going up and up and up. And as good as his year was in 2020, it wasn't as spectacular as his current kind of push is showing. Like he obviously won the World Cup, which was an unbelievable performance. But Johnny Clayton at the moment, I think, is going to have an unbelievable year. The way he takes out his doubles, I can't remember what tournament was it, the Masters, where he was on 90% on his doubles near the end. In one of his matches, I think it could have been one of the later stages. 90%. He wasn't missing anything over that format. Ridiculous. All his doubles, I know it sounds silly, all his doubles were going in the middle of the double. They weren't on the wire. He was just perfect.
Super.
He has that game in him. Johnny Clayton is going to be top 10 by the end of the year.
So who do you think out of this kind of pack is going to make a burst? So obviously, like, I know it's so tight. Like Van Goren could go from 4 to 9 when the restart comes back over the course of the night. But if you had to name one guy that's not in the 4 at the moment to make a push, who do you think it would be?
That's not in the 4.
Yeah.
Well, you left me off there because I'm going to say Peter Wright. I think Peter Wright will make a push. I'm really impressed by some of his performances. I think he's rediscovering a little bit of his form as well. I know he was devastated last year a couple of times, getting knocked out of a couple of tournaments, and the way he played, and he said he was close to walking away. He said in an interview there on PDC, he just thought about walking away from darts, which is mad considering I think the game he lost, he averaged 96 or something. But he's I really like the look of him at the moment. I think he's throwing really well. He's looking solid. As much as I'd love to see James Wade getting into top 4 and winning the bloody thing, I'd love to see him just winning the whole lot and then sulking on stage, getting the check, doing this whole good luck, I'm off to spend your money, thanks. I don't think that'll happen. Rob Cross has his problems. I just can't see him against the more consistent players. Like if he come up against Dimitri or Johnny who are hitting everything, can't see Rob coming through that. Poor old Glenn, he's not going to make a big burst unless he's after fixing something.
Yeah, but even you could argue, as we kind of look towards kind of the second half of the competition, I think my money is on Anderson to make a run. And I say that because I don't think Gary's playing there, but what he's still doing, he's still picking your pocket and he's still hanging around like a bad smell. And he's started to develop that other side of his game. Like 10 years ago, it's the dream boy, it's the fancy 180s. it's all that kind of glitz and glamour, where now he's kind of grinded himself down into the other kind of side of player. And we saw a lot of that in the Worlds. Like, he ground out games that he probably had no right to win. So Anderson would be the one I would kind of be looking out for as the second half of the league turns. But if we turn to the unfortunate end of things, which is obviously the relegation on Judgement Night, I feel like we are in agreement on poor Glenn more than likely dropping out after night 9. But out of the other guys, who do you reckon could drop? And if I had to put you on the spot, will drop out?
Yeah, again, it can be any of them. So you're throwing a dart at the wall. You can pick any of them. Just Jose is just so bonkers. You just don't know. You're putting me on the spot, so I will give you one. It could more than likely be Jose, but going on what I've seen so far, I think Jose might make a push, and Rob Cross could end up in the bottom 2.
Well, that's interesting that we both have the same name. I think Cross is going to drop out as well. I think he's going to. He seems to straighten himself up, but I think the break has come at the wrong time for him. And I think that there's an opportunity that the other guys are going to kind of reset themselves and come back stronger, where I think that there's a Cross, while he's kind of steadied himself, I don't know if he can then go back and hit that again. Now, that's madness saying about a former world champion, a former master champion, a former European champion, but all these guys are heavy hitters for a reason, and we are putting ourselves on the spot to pick a name. So we are going to say Rob Cross and Glenn Durant are going to drop out after night 9. So let's turn our attentions to the other end then of the business, which is if you had to name your semi-finalists from the remaining 8, who do you go with?
Okay, so I think from the way I've been speaking, you could probably guess. So Johnny, I'll get my trusty piece of paper that I've filled in here. So Johnny Clayton, obviously, I think I know he's top of the league at the moment, but there's nothing between the top 6, 7 places. But I think Johnny Clayton will be top. I think Aspinall will make it. I know you said he's struggling with his throw. I watch him a lot. I really like him. I watch him during that home tour as well because he performed so well in it. He won one of the home events. I think he loves that pressure game. Where he struggles is playing against players that are slightly slower. Because if you ever watch Aspinall, he's constantly, he has to get into it. He's coming up and he's nodding his head and he's kicking the hockey and he's getting ready to throw. So he comes up against a slow player or a player that's not up to the same tempo. Or even I know that MVG he doesn't get on too well on the hockey with MVG, but you think that might help him going forward. I like what I've seen from him, and I think when the pressure's on in a big game, I think Aspinall could actually push through. I have also gone with Peter Wright because I think another one that I've been looking at, and I like his form at the moment, and I think he knows how to win. Mad to think, I said, even the year he had compared to the previous year, when it's put to him, I think he can win. He can win big games, so I think he'll pick up the points to get into that final 4. And then my last one is MVG because it's MVG. Right.
So I'll take 3 of yours, and I'll swap Aspinall for Dimitri Van den Berg.
Okay, that's understandable.
We'll end up going. I think that there is going to be a burst from the pack after Judgement Night, and I think that's going to dictate where we end up at the end of the season. So, of your 4, who's your winner?
Can you guess? After all the talk I've been doing,
I feel like it begins with W, but if you just want to just confirm,
no, its surname ends in W. It begins with W. Peter Wright is going to win this competition.
Okay, right.
There's nothing more to say there. Peter Wright's going to win this competition. You should go on to Paddy Power and see what price you can get on him, and stick a few euro on because that's happening.
Okay, well, I disagree. And I think Van Gogh will find a way to get into the playoffs. And I think once he's in that longer format, on a night that he knows he needs to perform, there's very few that can stop him. Like, it took an exceptional effort for Humphreys to get the job done in the UK Open semi-final, and I just think if you let MVG in, he's going to take it 7 times out of 10. I think the other 3 times Peter Wright has a fair chance, but Michael Van Gerwen would be my pick, or the obvious pick, I know. So I think that's going to wrap up our first review of the first 5 nights of the Premier League in terms of where we are at. Tommy, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to talk about a few things that you're working on at the moment and where the people can find you if you want to take the floor.
Yeah, so during lockdown, we set up a local kind of an online radio station down in my village called Castledermot down in South Kildare. And basically we do something similar to this, except there's 2 DJs in a studio, and they play music. There's a chat box to the side that people all jump in and chat with each other. Set it up during lockdown just as a bit of crack for a couple of bank holiday weekends, and it took off a lot. And now we're on 4 days or 4 nights a week, and covering all music. We have people from all around the world tuning in. We have Newfoundland to America to all over the place. It's absolute madness. So it's called Radio Castledermot. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and mainly on Twitch, which is where we go live on, because Facebook kick us off when the copyright music kicks in. Even though we do have a license, Facebook don't allow you to broadcast music. So isn't that interesting? So yeah, so that's what we got up to during lockdown. Bit like yourselves, just trying out all the different technology and what we can the best way we can present it. What you guys have done here is absolutely fantastic. Thanks for giving me an insight into the back end of it as well. It's a really good show. Well done.
No, listen, it's been great having you on, Tom, and hopefully it won't be that long until we get you on again. And we'll make sure all the descriptions and links for everything will be in the description below. And just to see out once again, if you could like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think is going to happen for the rest of the Premier League. Subscribe to the network as myself and Kyler continue to build this out and going to bring on great guests such as Tommy and others that are coming down the line. I'm available to follow on Twitter and Instagram at KKLDuffMedia. Tommy's available at Tommaso C 2012. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.